Hello, everyone. This is the 172nd episode of the Soccer Nostalgia Talk Podcast. As always, this is Sean from Los Angeles and the Soccer Nostalgia blog. For this episode, I interview Romanian journalist Mr. Catalin Tudose as we discuss the matches of the Romanian national team during the 1983-84 season. Mr. Tudose works in the IT field, but he has in the past cooperated with electronic sport publications and even designed and managed www.sport365.ro. Hello, Catalin. Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you, Shahan, for the invitation. I'm glad I'm back here after the previous season, 82-83. Now it is time for 83-84.
Yes, and that was like a couple of years ago, I think we did that. Yeah. Can you describe the state of Romanian football in the fall of 1983?
Briefly, it was a good state because right before the start of the new season, the situation of the national team was good enough. The last result was the victory against Sweden. Yes, there were still good chances to qualify for the Euro 84 in France. Club teams, especially Universitatea Craiova and Dinamo, were doing good enough. Craiova was in the semifinals with Benfica in 83, and that was at that time was the best performance of the Romanian football. However, there was an incident that was not good, and that was the fact that in the Cup Winners' Cup, in that fall, Romania had no team because there was a mistake by the federation, by the managers that scheduled the Romanian Cup final after some deadline established by UEFA. That's why they decided to say, okay, Universitatea Craiova had to go to the Cup Winners' Cup. Say, okay, you after the deadline, we will not accept it. Craiova went to UEFA Cup, and FC Argeș, who had to go to UEFA Cup, didn't participate in that fall in Europe. And that was one cloud that came on top of all the good situation from the beginning of the 83-84 season. Otherwise, there was a good situation and there were good hopes for what was going to come.
And the previous season had ended, as you mentioned, the win over Sweden, but more importantly, the win over Italy in April, the defending World Cup champions. So I imagine there were expectations from the public and the press regarding the 1984 Euro qualifiers in its final stretch.
As I was saying, there were good hopes to go further. We were at the top of the group. Yes, we're not hot favorites, but excepting that home match with Czechoslovakia that was lost, otherwise we had good and very good results. So the expectations were to try to perform, to play very well in the fall season. Some previous qualifying campaigns ended bad during the last fall, like 2 years ago for the World Cup. But now there were still good hopes. There were two matches, yes, with Cyprus and with Czechoslovakia, and there were calculations made, what do we still need? And a victory against Cyprus was absolutely compulsory.
And those matches will be in November. So in between that, there were a number of friendlies that Romania participated in. The season started in August. So on August 10th, Romania played its first friendly of the season at Oslo against Norway. And let's remember, Romania is managed by Mircea Lucescu. So for this match, we have the following lineup: Silvia Lung of Universitatea Craiova, Mircea Rednic of Cornivul, Gino Iorgulescu of Sportul Studentesc, the captain of the team, Costica Stefanescu of Universitatea Craiova, Floria Vetus of Dinamo Bucharest, Lica Movila of Dinamo Bucharest, Ladisla Boloni of Tirgu Mureș, Michael Klein of Cornivul, Making his international debut, George Hagi of Sportul Studentesc, Romulus Gabor of Cornivul, he'd replaced by Stefan Jovan of Stoia in the 84th minute, Marcel Coras of Sportul Studentesc, he'd replaced by Ili Barbulescu of Olt Scornicesti in the 89th minute. And we should mention that Stefanescu was sent off in the 84th minute. This match ended as a scoreless tie. Not much can be assessed from it, especially that I was not able to find any highlights from this match anywhere. But what stands out in historical terms is that this was the debut of George Hagi at international level. Can you describe Hagi at this stage of his career? And was it self evident, even at this point, that he would be one of the greats of the game?
I will definitely say yes. Haji was 18 at that time. He was already proved in the championship his qualities. He had moved from Farul to Sportul Studențesc in that season. While he was playing for Farul, he was able to do great matches in the championship. I remember about a goal that he scored against Steaua in Bucharest for a 2-2 draw against the very experimented goalkeeper Vasile Iordache, a shot from the distance, and he was only 17 years old at that time. So he was already prominent and very promising, and many people that could see him play were already previewing a very nice future. But this match of August 1983 against Norway marks his debut, of course. For the first time, he was called to the national team by Mircea Lucescu.
2 weeks later, Romania have another friendly, this time at home against East Germany at Bucharest. For this match, we have the following lineup: Silvio Lung, he'd replaced by Dumitru Moraru of Dinamo Bucharest in the 46th minute. Nicolae Negrila of Universitatea Craiova. Iorgulescu, captain of the team Stefanescu. Nicolae Ungurianu of Universitatea Craiova. He'd be replaced by Floria Vatus in the 74th minute. Orel Ticlianu of Universitatea Craiova. He'd be replaced by international debutant Marcel Puskas of Stoia in the 72nd minute. And this would be the one and only match for Puskas for the national team. Lika Movila, he'd be replaced by Ionel Agustin of Dinamo Bucharest in the 83rd minute. Ladisla Boloni, George Hagi, he'd be replaced by Ilie Balaci of Universitatea Craiova in the 80th minute. Marcel Coras, and Rodion Kamataru of Universitatea Craiova. This match, Romania wins 1-0. Nicolae Negrila scored in the 33rd minute. Again, this is another match where there's no footage, or I haven't been able to find any footage. Just a couple of weeks later, on September 7th, you have yet another friendly, this time at Poland, at Krakow. For this match, Mircea Lucescu would be absent, and George Stacu, the manager of the Romanian Olympic side, would stand in for Lucescu. So for this match on September 7th, we have Silvio Lung. He replaced by Andres Periatu of Sportul Studentesc in the 46th minute. Ili Barbulescu, Stefan Jovan, Constantin Stancu of Arges Pitesti, Nicolae Ungurianu, captain of the team George Multescu of Dinamo Bucharest. He replaced by Sorin Sirtu of Universitatea Craiova. It's unclear whether he was replaced in the 60th minute or the 86th minute. I have many sources that show either or. Lika Movila, making his international debut, Mircea Irimescu of Universitatea Craiova. Ion Golgu of Universitatea Craiova. He replaced by Vasil Soiman of Bacău in the 80th minute. Marcel Coras, George Hagi. He'd replaced by international debutant Constantin Pana of Sportul Studentesc in the 67th minute. And for Pana, this was his one and only match for Romania. And we should mention that for Sorin Sirtu, this was his seventh and final cap for Romania. His first cap had been in 1979. This match ended as a 2-2 tie. Movila scored first for Romania in the 17th minute. Poland stormed back in the second half. Vladimir Cholek in the 52nd minute and Andrzej Ivan with a penalty kick in the 57th minute before Mircea Irimescu in his international debut tied the match in the 78th minute. We come to the month of October and the qualifiers are getting closer. Romania travels for another friendly, this time to Wales at Wrexham. Let's remember, this is a Wales that has Ian Rush, who's a star with Liverpool at this point. For this match, that would turn into a nightmare for Romania. We have the following lineup. Silvio Lung, he'd be replaced by Dumitru Muraru in the 46th minute. Mircea Rednic of Dinamo Bucharest. Gino Iorgulescu, he replaced by Ioan Andon of Dinamo Bucharest in the 65th minute. Captain of the team, Costica Stefanescu. Nicolae Ungurianu, Aurel Ticlianu, he'd replaced by Ionel Agustin in the 63rd minute. Ladisla Boloni, Michael Klein, he'd replaced by Mircea Irimescu in the 67th minute. Marcel Coras, Romulus Gabor, and Rodion Kamataru. This match, Romania would lose 5-0. Ian Rush scored twice in the 14th and the 30th minute. Mickey Thomas in the 25th minute. Robbie James in the 72nd minute. And Alan Curtis in the 90th minute. This heavy loss against Wales was certainly uncharacteristic after the positive displays of the previous year. What was the press reaction afterwards, and why do you think they lost so heavily?
The press reaction was, of course, critic, but during those times, critics were not so harsh because in the communist era, you had to keep some balance in critics. So the causes that were also emphasized in the press were some individual failure, individual mistakes, especially in the defense, as they emphasized that during the first half, there were a lot of individual mistakes, especially in the defense, that brought to a 3-0 result after the first half. Rush managed to score 2 goals. The title in the press was Total Eclipse of the team. And they were saying that they should reset to the previous capabilities that they had shown in previous matches. So yes, that was uncharacteristic, but fortunately was only a friendly match.
There will be another friendly match as we come to the month of November. On November 8th, the team travels to Israel to Tel Aviv. For this match, we have Silvio Lung. He's replaced by Vasile Iordake of Stoia in the 46th minute. Mircea Rednic. He's replaced by Nicolae Negrila in the 46th minute. Captain of the team, Costica Stefanescu. Alexandru Nicolae of Dinamo Bucharest. He's replaced by Gino Iorgulescu in the 69th minute. Nicolae Ungurianu. George Multescu. He's replaced by Aurel Ticlianu in the 69th minute. Ladisla Boloni, Michael Klein, George Hagi. He's replaced by Ion Golgu in the 75th minute. Ionel Agustin. He's replaced by Romulus Gabor in the 46th minute. Rodion Kamataru. He's replaced by Marcel Coras in the 75th minute. There's also another discrepancy in terms of the minutes because I have on record that Marcel Coras missed a penalty kick in the 65th minute but then the stats show that he was replaced in the 75th minute. So there's some discrepancy there. But in any case, the match ended as a 1-1 tie. Zahi Armeli scored in the 50th minute, and Marcel Corras tied the match in the 75th minute.
I also have some discrepancies. For example, I see Uri Malmilian in my statistics as the goal scorer of
Oh, for
Israel.
Israel, Mal Milan, yeah, that might be true, yeah.
We have to do some particular separate research in
Yeah,
different sources because
yeah,
during those times, so it's more than 40 years ago, the sources were not so rich.
all
There are
right.
no recordings from those matches, not even some short resume, short highlights. Probably we should put head to head a few sources. If I look in the Romanian press, this is also not absolutely sure because they were sending by phone. The phone connections were not working fine during those times, and you could have this type of even obvious mistakes.
Well, just a few days later, Romania played its first qualifier of the season. So on November 12th, they traveled to Limassol to face Cyprus. For this match, that, like you said before, Romania had to win
To
to
win.
qualify. Romania starts with Silvio Lung, Mircea Rednic, Costica Stefanescu, Alexandru Nicolae, Nicolae Ungureanu, Aurel Ticlianu, George Multescu. This was his 16th and final cap for Romania. His first cap had been in 1974, and he'd be replaced by George Hagi in the 46th minute. Ladisla Boloni, Michael Klein, Rodion Kamataru, Marcel Corras, and he'd be replaced by Romulus Gabor in the 73rd minute. Romania had to leave it late. They scored the winner in the 77th minute when a cross from the left side was headed in by Bologna, and Romania got the win. This match against Cyprus, Romania had virtually qualified after this win. Was there some worry as it took so late in the second half to get the winner?
So I cannot speak about qualification yet, not even virtual qualification, because there was still a match, a decisive match that was going to be played in Bratislava with Czechoslovakia. I saw the match on TV during those times. Romania was attacking and were putting pressure. But indeed, the goal came late because the Cyprus team was very tough. They had resisted at home against Czechoslovakia and against Italy in the previous qualification matches. Romania had a goal disallowed, I remember. And indeed, it came late, a late or pretty late winner by Berloni after many efforts from the team. But say, okay, Romania won. We still have one decisive match. It's important that we brought those 2 points. There were 2 points during those times. Romania was still in qualification, was happy. We're not expecting an easy match after Italy and Czechoslovakia tied there on the Cyprus ground, and after even Sweden had problems to get the victory. We're not expecting an easy match.
And this match against Cyprus was the last one for George Multescu. What can you say about his career with Romanian national team?
Gheorghe Mulțescu, who unfortunately passed away in September last year, was a very hard working player. Yes, he's remembered for his efforts, for being a very useful player. I would say that the most important things from his career come rather from Dinamo Bucharest, and especially in exactly that autumn. Dinamo faced Hamburger Sportverein in Champions Cup, and he scored a goal in Bucharest with a shot from 35 meters away from the goal of Uli Stein. And also he scored another goal in Hamburg, the one that brought the final score of 3-2. So if you ask at least me, I'm remembering mostly his performances in Dinamo, where he scored these very important goals. Also, he was a very useful player, including in the national team, and he is remembered for being a hard worker player.
A few weeks later, we have the decisive final qualifier against Czechoslovakia at Bratislava. So on November 30th, we have the following lineup for Romania: Silvia Lung, Nicolae Negrila, Costica Stefanescu, the captain of the team, Gino Iorgulescu, Nicolae Ungureanu, Mircea Rednic, Ladisla Boloni, Michael Klein, Ion Golgu, Rodion Kamataru, Romulus Gabor. He'd be replaced by Ionel Agostin in the 79th minute, who in turn would be replaced 10 minutes later in the 89th minute by Alexandru Nicolae. Romania takes the lead in the 63rd minute. A cross from the left side was headed out by the Czech defense, and Ion Golgu struck from the edge of the box and gave Romania the lead. And
Ion Jolgo, let me
yeah,
pronounce.
Jolgo.
Sorry.
Okay, Jolgo. Sorry about that. Yeah. Well, Czechoslovakia would tie the match in the 85th minute, where a cross from the left side was struck in by Milan Luhovi. But the tie was enough for Romania to win this group and qualify for the 1984 Euros to take place in France. This was Romania's first ever qualification to the Euros and to the finals of any kind since the 1970 World Cup. We're talking about more than a decade. Can you describe the celebrations and the press reaction afterwards?
So there was an enthusiasm, but as those times were imposing, you couldn't have so much enthusiasm because the press was under control, the economic conditions were not very good. But after this match, of course, the newspaper Sportul announced the team worked and fought in an exemplary way, a prestigious result that brings us to the Euros, a bright success, and they provided the pictures of the players and of the coaches on the first page. Later, next day after the qualification, they announced, the press was saying, our players are dedicating this victory to the 1st of December. Let me tell you that today, after the revolution of 1989, December 1st is the National Day of Romania. It celebrates the Unity Day, so what is called the National Unitary State of Romania in 1918. So this match was played on November 30th, 1983, 65 years after the events of 1918. We didn't know that in a few years this was going to be the National Day, but the press was trying to connect with some other events, to be patriotic, to connect. And this is a real important event. And these connections and those celebrations, I would say they are typical for those times. So we give the winners what they deserve, but in some mild way. And sometimes we may connect to other events that are not sport related.
All the attention was now to the 1984 Euros
Yes,
in
definitely.
France. So we have a series of preparations. As the year starts, the year 1984, Romania goes on a tour of South America. They play a match against Ecuador and two matches against a Brazilian selection that are not considered official matches. The match against Ecuador is on January 22nd, 1984 at Guayaquil. Romania plays with Lung, he replaced by Iordache in the 46th minute. Negrila, he replaced by Jovan in the 55th minute. Iorgulescu, Stefanescu, Ungureanu, Ticlianu, Boloni, Klein, he replaced by Hagi in the 63rd minute. Balaci, Jolgo, he replaced by Marius Lakatush in the 63rd minute. And Rodion Kamataru. 2 days later, they play against a Brazilian selection at Florianopolis, They lose 3-1. Kamataro scores Romania's goal. You have players like Ioan Zare of Bihor Oradea making an appearance. Then on January 28th at Curitiba, they play against the Brazilian selection. This time they lose 3-0. These matches are considered unofficial matches.
Unofficial.
Unofficial matches, yeah. But in the second match against Brazil, Dorin Matot of Cornival made his international debut. And also Negrila gets sent off in the 61st minute. Matut and Lakatush would make their official debuts in their next match, next friendly against Algeria. So this match is on February 7th. They travel to Alger to face Algeria. For this match, you have Iordake starting for the first time in the season. You have Negrila, Iorgulescu, Stefanescu, captain of the team, Ungurianu, Ticlianu. Dorin Matut makes his international debut. Dorin Matut of Cornival in the 81st minute. He replaces Ticlianu. You have Bologna, Klein, Haji. He's replaced by Gabor in the 81st minute. Kamataru. He's replaced by Marius Lakatush of Stoia in the 81st minute, and this is his official international debut as well. And Ili Balachi. This match ends as a 1-1 tie. Romania takes the lead in the 73rd minute after an own goal through Mahmoud Guendouzi, but Algeria ties the match in the 80th minute through Ali Ben Sheikh. This match against Algeria marked the official international debuts of Dorin Matot and Marius Lakatush. What can you say about them and their careers at this point?
They were very young during those times. Lakatush was not even 19. Lakatush was 19, Mateusz was 18. There were already some hopes of them being future very good players. Let's say that Lakatush had moved during the summer of 83 from Brasov to Steaua. He came and integrated very well in the Steaua team. He was known that he could discuss and face even very experimented players without any emotions, even players that were 10 or 15 years older than him. He could integrate and impose sometimes his point of view. Mateusz was still at Corvino. He was part of that very good Corvino team that was originally formed by Mircea Lucescu. Many players from Corvino moved later from Corvino to Dinamo, like Andone, Rednik, Klein. Mateusz was the youngest of them, and he remained in Corvino until 1986. But there were already some signs that he was going to become an important player. Both Lakatush and Mateusz were very talented and provided hopes for the future.
Romania's next friendly is against Greece on March 7th at Craiova. For this match, we have Lung, hit replaced by Iordake in the 46th minute. Negrila, Iorgulescu, Stefanescu, hit replaced by Constantin Stancu of Arges Pitesti in the 57th minute. This was his third and final cap for Romania. His first cap had been the previous year, 1983. Nicolae Ungurianu, he replaced by Mircea Irimescu in the 70th minute. Orel Ticlianu, he replaced by Gavril Balind of Estoia in the 46th minute. Ladislav Bologna, Dorin Mateut, George Hagi, Rodion Kamataru. He'd replaced by Gabor in the 61st minute and Marcel Coras. Romania wins this match 2-0. Coras scores in the 17th minute and Mateut in the 61st minute. So we come to the last friendly prior to the Euros. On April 11 at Oradea, Romania hosts Israel. For this match, we have Lung. He replaced by Iordake in the 46th minute. Making his international debut, Ion Zare of Bihor Oradea. You have Gino Iorgulescu, Costica Stefanescu, captain of the team, Nicolae Ungurianu. He replaced by Floria Vatus in the 79th minute. This was Vatus' seventh and final cap. His first cap had been 1982. Orel Ticlianu, he replaced by Irimescu in the 59th minute. Boloni, Klein, Haji, Gabor, he replaced by Lakatush in the 67th minute. Koras, he replaced by Zoltan Krizan of Universitatea Craiova in the 72nd minute. This was Krizan's 41st and final cap for Romania. His first cap had been in 1974. And this match ends as a scoreless tie. Just like the previous season where you mentioned Universitatea Craiova had been successful in the UEFA Cup, another symbol of Romania's revival in football was Dinamo Bucharest's run in the Champions Cup that season, where they reached as far as the semifinals before being eliminated by Liverpool. Can you discuss this European adventure?
This was another success at the club level after Universitatea Craiova. This time, Dinamo in the Champions Cup. They had a very successful campaign here. Most importantly, they had eliminated Hamburger Sportverein, who were the title holders at those times. I mentioned these two games against Hamburg and the goals scored by Mulțescu, both in Bucharest and away. That was a great success. 3-0 to beat the European champions, 3-0 at home, and then to qualify losing 3-2 after recovering from 3-0. That was a great success. And the success continued in spring. Dinamo eliminated Dinamo Minsk from USSR at those times, and were finally eliminated by the team that was going to win the competition, Liverpool. Liverpool was too tough for Dinamo, but however, they had fought until the end. They lost both matches, but 1-0 to 1, this is a narrow margin. And I remember about those matches being very tough, and Dinamo provided a very tough opposition. Let me add something here because you enumerated all those friendly matches. You mentioned, and we noticed that there were matches played in Craiova, in Oradea, other cities than Bucharest, because Mircea Lucescu during those times had the habit to bring the national team in other cities so that people enjoy seeing the players. Also, he had the habit, you mentioned that the South American tournament. This was something to do when he wanted to work alone, to focus on the work with the players. He had made a previous tournament in 82, 2 years before the qualification. And this is another tournament because he wanted to play alone with the players. Also in January, the conditions were tough. The climate conditions were tough in Europe and very nice in South America. Also, the national team had made some tournament, I remember, in South America in 1970, when Mircea Lucescu was player and captain of the team that had qualified for Mexico. So this was some habit that had some reasons, as I explained. Work with the players in some serenity and in some good climate conditions.
We come to the 1984 Euros. Let's look at the final 20 players selected by Mircea Lucescu for these Euros. For goalkeepers, we have at number 1 Silviu Lung, at number 12 Dumitru Muraru, and at number 20 Vasile Iordache. For defenders, at number 2 we have Mircea Rednic, at number 3 we have the captain of the team Costica Stefanescu, number 4 Nicolae Ungurianu, number 6 Gino Iorgulescu, number 8 Michael Klein, number 13 Ioan Andone, and number 16 Nicolae Negrila. Midfielders, at number 5 Orel Ticlianu, number 10 Ladisla Boloni, number 11 George Hagi, Number 14, Mircea Irimescu. Number 15, the uncapped Marin Dragnea of Dinamo Bucharest, who had impressed in the Champions Cup run. And number 18, Ionel Agustin. Strikers, number 7, Marcel Coras. Number 9, Rodion Kamataru. Number 17, Ioan Zare. And number 19, Romulus Gabor. Besides the surprise selection of Dragnea, was the squad more or less what everyone expected as far as the press and the public?
So you mentioned Dragna that I also wanted to emphasize. He didn't take part in the qualifying. You mentioned that he was previously uncapped. He was going to play pretty well in 2 matches in the final tournament. But there was a big absence with a good reason. The absence of Balac, who had an accident in that spring and couldn't play. Yes, he was practically the star of the team. He was the best player in Romania in 1981 and 1982, and he was the leader of the team of Universitatea Craiova. That was the accident from that spring was in fact the accident that accelerated the end of his career because Balac has never come back to the peak form he had in 81, 82, maybe 83. That was an absence with a good reason. Dragna, as you're saying, was uncapped. He had very good evolution with Dinamo. And we can also, a little surprise, we can mention Zare. That was a striker. Otherwise, I would say that it was the expected team. Otherwise, I would say there were the players that were decisive during the qualifications. Let's have a look at least at the order of the goalkeepers. Lung, Moraru, and Iordache, and this is exactly how it was, of course, expected. So Lung was involved in the qualifications. He was number 1 goalkeeper. Moraru was number 2, and Iordache was also an important goalkeeper in Romania, but he was by the end of his career.
We come to the 1984 Euros, and Romania are in Group 2 with West Germany, Portugal, and Spain. They start off their matches on June 14th, 1984 at Saint Etienne against Spain. For this match, we have Lung, Rednic, Stefanescu, Iorgulescu, Ungureanu, Coras. Making his international debut, Marin Dragnea, he replaced by Ticliano in the 57th minute. Bologna, Klein, Kamataru, Gabor, he replaced by Haji in the 76th minute. Spain takes the lead with a penalty kick in the 22nd minute when Lung fouled Gallego in the box and Carrasco scored from a penalty kick. But Romania ties the match in the 35th minute. From the left side, Coras passed to Bologna, who then shot past Arconada. And Romania's first match ended as a 1-1 tie. Their next match against the defending European champions, West Germany. West Germany of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge, Rudi Völler, Andy Brehme, Lothar Matthäus, Brigel, Schumacher. We can name many of their stars. On June 17th at Lens, Romania wearing red, we have the following lineup: Lung, Rednic, Andon, Stefanescu, Ungureanu, Dragnea. He'd replaced by Ticliano in the 62nd minute. Bologna, Klein, Haji. He'd replaced by Zara in the 46th minute. Kamataru and Coras. Germany takes the lead in the 24th minute. Norbert Meyer crossed from the left side and Rudi Völler headed in Germany's first goal. Romania would tie the match in the 46th minute. Bologna's pass from the middle was dummied and flicked in the path of Coras, who advanced and scored. But Germany would score the winner in the 65th minute again through Rudi Feller. Alofs's cross from the left side reached Rummenigge, who immediately passed to Feller on the left, who shot past Lung. And Germany won this match 2-1, which effectively eliminated Romania, even though they still had one more match left.
Not yet.
Yeah,
We were eliminated, but later there were still some chances.
some glimmer of hope, yeah. The last match in the group was against Portugal on June 20th at Nantes. So Romania, again wearing red. You have this time Dumitru Moraru starting in goal. Negrila, Iorgulescu, Stefanescu, Ungurianu, Irimescu. He'd replaced by Gabor in the 59th minute. Rednik, Boloni, Klein, Kamataru. He'd be replaced by Ionel Agustin in the 34th minute and Coras. This match, Portugal would win 1-0. Nene scored Portugal's winner in the 81st minute. There was a cross from the left side and Nene volleyed it in. Romania were out after 2 losses. Let's look on balance. How were these performances regarded? Was qualification satisfaction in itself given such a long absence? Is that how this was viewed at the time?
The qualification itself was a big satisfaction. During those times, there were completely different conditions. When I'm saying completely different conditions, I'm saying Euro was having only 8 participants. You mentioned that the previous qualification was in 1970, but we should mention here the quarterfinals of the European Championship in 72. It was not the final tournament because during those times, the final tournament was having only 4 participants. But however, being among the first 8 teams of Europe was a reality. However, the final tournament was having only 4. Nowadays, we have 24. Yes. So it was a big satisfaction by itself. These were the conditions in the number of participants. Also, the political conditions were those of the communist time when it was hard to get outside of the country. And such a big success at the level of the national team was highly considered as a very good performance. Especially that Romania during the qualifications eliminated Italy, world champions, Czechoslovakia and Sweden, that were 2 extremely powerful teams. Then, if you look at the opponents in the group, Spain, West Germany at those times, Portugal even today or during those times are very tough opponents. We had some hopes after the draw against Spain, 1-1. I remember that the penalty of Spain came after a mistake in the defense. But after that, Romania started to dominate. They obtained only the draw. They were pretty good against Germany. However, they lost. We had hopes at the beginning of the second half when Coras obtained the equalizer. And there were still hopes for the match against Portugal. Romania needed a victory. It was difficult to obtain. I said, let's try. We had performances during the qualifications. We had very good players. We also had those performances during the campaigns of Universitatea Craiova and Dinamo. So why not? Why not to try? Okay, they lost even against Portugal. They finished at the bottom of their groups, but there were some reasons. The matches were lost. The lost matches were lost with a margin of 1 single goal. The opponents were very tough. Spain was going to be finalist. Portugal was semi-finalist and provided a lot of problems to France in the semi-finals in Marseille, I remember. So despite the elimination, there was some satisfaction that we were there and that we provided pretty good football.
And which players stood out for Romania in these Euros?
I would mention here Berloni, who was an excellent player that came back in Romania's team in 81 after an absence of more than 1 year. He was one of the top players. And also Coraș. Coraș was not so prominent during his career like Berloni, Ștefănescu, other stars, but he had a very good tournament. He was somehow at the peak of his career, and he even scored against West Germany. Also, Hagi played during two of the matches. He was away from his top form in 10 years later, but it was already seen that he was a player of great perspective.
Do you remember yourself how and where you watched these matches at the time?
Yes, they were broadcasted in the Romanian television. Let's say that during those times, broadcasting international matches was rare. The final tournament of 82, 2 years earlier in Spain, World Cup finals was not broadcasted, nothing at all, because there were economies to make here. However, for 84 being qualified, we broadcasted the 3 matches of Romania plus the final. I remember, I think that the final France-Spain was the last international match broadcasted in Romania before the revolution of 89. When I say international match, means with no Romanian participation.
Oh, really? Wow. Not even the 86 World Cup or 88
No, it was
Euros?
not broadcasted because of economy reasons.
Oh,
So I was watching 86 in the Bulgarian television. So you could
uh,
connect your antennas to Sofia, to
oh,
Bulgaria.
wow.
But I remember on black and white televisions, I watched these matches: Spain, West Germany, and Portugal.
Do you think that the adventures of the 90s, the 94 team, and so forth, in a way, this may have been the beginning of that adventure starting from this point, this 84 Euros?
We may say there were some roots of what was going to come. There were some roots because there were already some very good players, and there was some internal organization. Yes, it was some military organization. Players were brought later to the clubs like Steaua and Dinamo that were organized in a military way. But these roots represented both at the level of the national team and at the level of the clubs were amplified later with the qualification 6 years later in Italy, 90, and everything that was going to come. If you have a look at some names from 84 and some names from 90, you are going to discover important players that came there. You mentioned, of course, Hagi, Lăcătuș, who was
Lung,
just
Rednick, all of
Lung,
them.
Rednic,
Yeah.
Mateuț, Andone. So they were very young, or even some early hopes like Hagi or Lăcătuș or Mateuț, but they performed very well for the 1990 finals and later with the generations to come. So these were some early roots of the golden generation.
In closing, at the end of this season, what was the view regarding the general state of Romanian football and its future, despite a relatively unsuccessful Euros finals?
As I was saying, the participation was a success by itself. After some years, in the conditions of only 8 participants, in the conditions of the communist era, the participation itself, winning a group with Italy, Sweden, Czechoslovakia, even Cyprus, was a performance by itself. So there were some satisfaction, there were some hopes for what was going to come. Successes were confirmed first at the level of clubs. In the next years, we had excellent performances from Steaua and then from Dinamo. And there were some hopes, at least if maybe satisfaction is too much to say, after being eliminated at the bottom of the group. But considering all those conditions from those times, I would say there were some reasons for hopes. And for satisfaction.
With that, I would like to thank you for your participation in this interview. All our contact information is listed on the blog and podcast uploads. So, Catalin, thank you once again,
Thank you for inviting me.
and hope to continue these discussions on Romanian football history.
Thank you, and you will keep in touch.